Hello, I am back on this amplifier again. Some of you might have seen the old video to this amplifier that I put together about a year ago, and I've recently upgraded it. If you watched the last video, some of you may have watched it, some of you may not. Well, obviously. It used to look like this. This aluminium chassis with this transformer and these buck converters was inside this amplifier, and that power supply board right there was in between the buck converters and the transformer. However, I didn't like these buck converters being in the system because I made a mistake when I first put all this together. What I did was I calculated the 24 volts coming out of the transformer. What I didn't take into account was the extra voltage that would be put on by the power supply. Consequently, I had ended up with about 36 volts coming out of the other end of the power supply, which was too much. Consequently, I had to buy these buck converters, which was a lot cheaper than buying another transformer. But I didn't like the buck converters being in there, and they give out about 30 millivolts of ripple. To your ear holes, you can't hear it. It makes no difference. The sound quality was perfect. Couldn't fault it one little bit. But I just didn't like the buck converters being in the system. So I went and looked in my bits and pieces. And I had a couple of old units, identical units, that had these transformers in there. What's in there now? These don't look big on the video. They might not look big on this video, but they are 280 VA, so 280 watts each. And this is a 300 watt transformer, but so these are 280 watts. They're only 20 watts less, and they're good. They still work perfectly fine. Well, I say perfectly fine. They've lost about 1.5 volts over the years. They're about 30 years old. Anyway, so I took these transformers out of some old equipment that I had, two pieces of identical equipment, and I give these a shot, and it works out that they've lost 1.5 volts. Strangely, I'm not an expert in electronic stuff, but what I didn't understand was this was giving out 24 volts, but by the time it come out the other end of the power supply, I was getting 36 volts. So it was adding 12 volts to the power output. But these transformers are, although they're 24 volts as well, they give out, you can set them up for 12 volts or 24 volts. Although they're 24 volts, they were only spitting out 22, is it 22? Yeah, 22.5. So they lost 1.5 volts of power over the years. But funnily enough, that actually worked out perfectly fine, because I initially thought if I used a 12 volt output, by the time it goes through the power supply board, if it adds another 10 volts to it, I have 22 volts, which will be perfectly adequate. However, it turned out that even though they'd lost 1.5 volts of the 12 volt output and of the 24 output, it made no difference really, to be honest with you. But it turns out that putting 22.5 volts through the power supply board, I got back 28 volts total output. So it only added 5.5 volts overall. So I learnt something there. Anyway, 28 volts is perfectly fine, because these amplifier boards here can hold up to about 30 volts. So I'm just under the limit. Anyway, sound quality wise, I can't really say there's a difference, to be honest with you. The sound of it sounds the same. I'm not going to make up a story. They sound the same. The only difference is, as you can clearly see, I've now got a proper dual monoblock setup. A proper monoblock setup. So, this is what it looks like now. This is all by the way. I mean, this box ain't staying. This chassis here isn't going to be staying, and you can probably hear that fan. That's not going to be in the system neither. That's all going to be gone. Once I get a decent aluminium case or make something up, the only thing that would be in it would be these two transformers, the power supply board, these caps, and possibly another two on top, and these amp boards onto a decent chassis. So the fan won't be there, so it'd be nice and quiet. But anyway, so what I am pleased about, although there's nothing wrong with this transformer and it's perfectly fine and it was working perfectly fine and sounded great and there's no difference in sound quality, it wasn't it wasn't a true monoblock setup, and although that wasn't really a big issue, but I didn't want these buck converters in the system. So this is what it looks like now. So, and these transformers are 280 watts each. So, and that's going on to 1 amp. So this is truly a proper monoblock setup now, because each amplifier, this power supply board here, literally I could get a hacksaw and I could cut down the middle of this. Where's my pencil? I need it. I could cut down the middle of this straight all the way in a straight line, all the way down the middle there, and it would still work perfectly fine because they're completely separate. So each amplifier's now got its own power supply, its own transformer, and is now a true monoblock setup. And like I said, these might not look big in the picture, these transformers, but they are almost 300 watts each, so they are bigger than what they might look. And this is what it's like now. It's not going to stay in this box, obviously, and all these wires all going all over the place, and the power wires and audio wires, although the audio wires are all shielded, it's going to be rerun neatly and tidily, and the power wires will be completely separated from the audio wires, and it will look a lot better. And that's it. That's the update for this amplifier, and sounds great still. There's no difference in sound quality. It all sounds perfectly fine. Yeah, it all sounds perfectly fine. Sounds just as good as it did before. I can't knock the sound in any way. The only thing is, like I said, the only difference is now it's a true monoblock setup, and I'm happy with it. Just going to get better and better. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, and see you later.